Well, hey, welcome to the show before the show, where I check to make sure everything's working. I'm your host, Patrick Marlette, your local game guy, and this is Local Game Group. If you've never been to this channel, well, we do predominantly MTG content, so expect a ton of it here. And today, we're brushing up a list I built quite some time ago. It's Rograkh and Tevesh, and I think I built it around Commander Master's release, when Rograkh and Tevesh were announced. Rakdos is one of those colors that's really good at one thing, and that's putting its foot on the acceleration. It goes really fast. So at the time, I thought, well, how cool would it be to reality scramble out some ridiculous card? At the time, I did Sire of Insanity. I later revised it to be Rograkh. But more recently, we got Hoarding Broodlord, which kind of feeds into this strategy perfectly. Generally speaking, if you can't turbo out the scramble to hit the thing you want, which easily pulls into with Sire Insanity, nothing for your opponents and you, but then you're killing people with Sire of Insanity if you're on the play. It was more of a meme than anything else. But Rograkh comboed perfectly with the list, particularly if you had 2 Thrall. I go over how those playlines work in a previous video, so if you want to look that up, you can look up a better Rograkh and Tevesh here on the channel. Now with Hoarding Broodlord, you never really... I took the Reality Scramble line out because if Hoarding Broodlord's in hand and you have 4, 6 Thrall, you just hardcast Hoarding Broodlord because it has Convoke. So the whole strategy has kind of changed because setting up combos with Hoarding Broodlord, and there are many, in mono black alone and now in Rakdos, so it allowed us the opportunity, or at least permitted us, to play a wider range of cards, like providing more creatures for this list. And there have been a ton of really good creatures for Rakdos since I brewed this list. Most recently, Orcish Bowmaster, and I'm so happy to say I pulled 2 recently. One is going to Justin, which is the normal one. He wants to have it altered, so it doesn't need to be foil or anything like that. And then I pulled the full art Orcish Bowmaster. Not gonna lie, I was really hoping for the one. I was really hoping to pull another One Ring because they're very expensive and I could use another copy. But that's okay, because this particular card goes right into this deck. So I've got the full art Orcish Bowmaster, super excited for that. You can actually take a look at the list now. There are links in the description, obviously, to Linktree, so if you want to follow the other social for Local Game Group, that's right at the top. If you want to support this channel, there are 2 ways to do so. But more importantly, if you go past my description of what the tank is, and we'll get into what that is in a second, you can visit the new list as it stands. So follow along, help me revise this. If you have a Rakdos Discord that likes brewing for list in this color, please send this to them. I want more minds, more heads working on this project as we start today. So I'm going to go to the comments, chat with you guys for a second, and then I'll go over what the tank is, outside of a really good intro song for Cowboy Bebop. Just called Tank, right? Yeah. Silver Yang says, meh. I don't know what that is. Hey, Bloodblade. Will of the Wisp, hey man. Can we do Will Scion of Peace deck tech sometime down the line? We could. Give me your favorite life gain cards. It'll help me out. Just give me all your favorite life gain cards. Go big or home. Go big, go home color. Huh? Like Rakdos. Rakdos is my home color. Love Tevesh and Rog. I honestly think it's still the best Rakdos. Still the best Rakdos pairing. Me personally, I fully believe that Rograkh and Tevesh are the best thing you can do in Rakdos. Sorry, Captive Kingpin. Sorry, Rowan. These colors really lend themselves well to that one thing I mentioned earlier, which is going fast. And having a 0-cost commander enables so much. And we can play through the list as it is before we get to revising it, but you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, listening to this while I brew a Baluna Tamir Breach combo list. Oh, cool. So the Breach lines are going to be probably more or less relevant to you. I mean, Tamir's not the same at all, but we're going to be doing Breach lines in this. However, the breach lines I play with can work into any list. You have blue, so you're probably better off. But you can still do some of the things that we'll be doing here today, right? So you're in green, blue, red. I'm just checking out what Baluna does again. We went over it in our tier list for the channel, but Baluna is pretty dope. All right. Anyway. I'd refresh Yang. Oh god, Discord has ruined me. Oh, Will-o-the-Wisp. Yeah, so that's the thing. There's too many people with opinions out there. I don't generally, and a lot of you link Discords to me. You gotta check out the Mono White Discord. They got so many thoughts on Oswald. And while I like sharing opinions, like in person and on live streams, I don't want to get bogged down with too many cooks in the kitchen saying what is and isn't good in a particular list. I know what suits my play style and I know what I prefer. However, today I could definitely use a hand, and that's what we're hopefully gearing up to do in a second, is make this the best Rograkh and Tevesh list there is. And I think it's pretty darn close. Like, the deck is not lacking. If you look at the description, I talk about how I won with it the other day, but I'll get into how I won. I won with it the other day, but it was confusing. I took out a lot of the previous play lines and then I added some new ones, and I really didn't know what I wanted to go for. I feel like some of the play lines are convoluted, but they all use cards that are just good in the list, so not a bad thing. I think the first thing we'll probably do today is just look at the play lines. I feel like Rakdos color combination is the most high risk, high reward color combination in the format. It's definitely the fastest with rituals. My list is Tevesh. Jessica bought the new Secret Lair. Oh, hell yeah. I just bought this SLD for Rograkh, the left-handed one. The left-handed Rograkh is so good looking. Oh my gosh. I'm super excited to play this list. I've been thinking how I want another list in paper, and I would like for it to be definitely counter to what Oswald does. And Rograkh and Tevesh are, you know, they're a storm list like Oswald is now, but they play dramatically differently. It's also nice having draw in the command zone. Really nice having draw in the command zone. Okay. All good now. Thanks, Will-o-the-Wisp. I usually go with Jessica because it's infinite outlet to win the game, but Roger definitely brings speed, turn 1 Tevesh, draw 3 cards. Yeah, that's what you want. Personally speaking, I feel like Rograkh lends itself really well to having Tevesh in the CZ. It's rare that I can't mulligan down to a hand of 5 and have it at least a turn 1 Tevesh. Seriously, we'll see today, but there are always lines to get Tevesh out turn 1. And generally speaking, like, you're going through so many hurdles. If someone stops you, and this is something I have to constantly tell myself to just chill out on, because it's really annoying when people cut you. If it's turn 0 for everyone else and it's turn 1 for you, and all you're doing is playing out your commander, it's rarely a good idea to counter that, even if it's Tevesh. If you're on blue farm, that's stupid. You have a Crom that can swing in my Tevesh. Trust me, I'm not trying to ultimate the Tevesh. It's a happy coincidence when it happens, but so often do I have people make games, 3-player games, by outing me. When I aggressively mulligan to like 4 cards, I'm out if I don't resolve a thing, and then they're just like, oh yeah, this is really smart. It's gonna be cool when I do this. It's like, oh, great. You literally out one player, you're down a resource. You know, if that thing was a force of will, then you're out 2 cards, and your opponents are like, okay, great. You shut this other player off I had to think about now. Now I have free reign to do whatever, right? Where you could have left me open with a deflecting swat or whatnot. It's crazy how many people make 3-player games out of Commander, but hopefully your play group's smarter than that. They don't just nuke you as you're trying to do the thing, because you don't win on the spot when you play Tevesh. You don't. Rarely any commander do you win on the spot. List the commanders where you win on the spot. I'd love to know. At any rate, this goes really quickly. Be wary. If people don't know what you're doing, they'll just counter anything. Facts. Okay. I played Tev Rog Turbo, and honestly, it's crazy fun, fast, and effective. Have a couple months without playing it, dying to revisit it and try Bloodborne. likes on it and maybe the one ring. The Bloodborne lines, Jose? Yeah, this should be a good video then, because we're gonna revise mine to a particular extent. It's not using Bloodborne Apostle, and I don't think we need the one ring personally, but well, I wanted to get another copy to test in here. That's why I wanted another copy, but I don't think we're gonna be using the one ring here. Mardu Summer. Mardu's pretty sweet. Does Rog Tev line still use the Poly Keth line? No, Daniel. We're on Hoarding Broodlord, and we're not on Reality Scramble or Transmogrify, any of those. It's really honestly not necessary. Like, I'm genuinely surprised at how well this list run without those. I'm very excited to tell you how I won my game the other day with it. But yeah, I talk about it loosely in the description. Oh, actually, does Rakdos have enough win cons? Dofsva, yes. Yes, it does. So there are a ton. It really depends on how you want to close out the game, and that's really what we're going to try to narrow down today. Generally speaking, I only really like to have 2 outlets in a deck, and then... Oh, hey, oh, thank you for the subscription, Ruben. Thank you. Hope you guys don't pick that up on the mic. But... with Rakdos, you have a lot of storm lines. I like to finish now with Grape Shot. I was on Aetherflux Reservoir if you followed my old list. It really doesn't make sense to run such a high CMC spell when you're not generally trying to play it out and gain the life due to life loss. Normally Tevesh is taking the hits once you put him down, so your life is usually okay. And spoiler alert, I won with 20 life and an ad nauseum the other day. You don't really need that much life. So you're going to win with Grape Shot. You can win with the Aetherflux Reservoir. You can win with a series of combat lines, whether it's additional combats or... okay, so in my particular list, we're doing additional combats, or rather infinite creatures into combat, right? Because Dualcaster Mage plays into a lot of lines here and is just generally a good card in 2 colors. So there is that. But also, you can infinitely... there are lines to infinitely cast Praetor's Grasp and just exile everyone's library, right? So you can do that, or you could just Praetor's Grasp the Thassa's Oracle and win that way. So there's technically like a 3rd out here, but I'm really only focusing on the Grape Shot and the Dualcaster lines for this. And we'll go over those in a second. But again, I want to refine what the deck is doing, and we'll talk about that in a few. Okay, Rog Tevesh can go with Tevesh on turn 2, 3, polymorph off his thralls, no? You can polymorph the thralls as well. That sounds super idealistic, though. No, that's how I used to win. I would reality scramble out. Sometimes you wouldn't even need 2 thralls, but I do discuss the play lines for winning with a transmogrified Rograkh. It's really not that difficult. It ultimately landed on a Burnt Offering PETA, which is just superior. That line is way better with Hoarding Broodlord. We've discussed that combo a lot on the channel. Tevrog does not polymorph. My Tevrog does not have any polymorph effects. Only Turbo Adnaz or Breach lines with Dualcaster Storm and Aetherflux. Okay. I had my fish commandeered turn 1 on the play. There's also winning with OP, Agent, Scheming Symmetry. Yeah, you could do that too. Jessica is a win on the spot. Jessica's Will? You could even do like a reiterated Jessica's Will, or there's other play lines to copy Jessica's Will. If you have Jessica in the command zone, I don't really like having a commander that's just an outlet. That's kind of silly to me, particularly if you have a ton of outlets just baked into the list in cards that are relatively innocuous. Like, I don't think everyone looks at Praetor's Grasp and says, oh, that's an outlet. Oftentimes, Praetor's Grasp, at least in a cEDH setting, is used to pull the combo card. If you're behind, it'll be used to pull fast mana or something to get you ahead. For me, I usually use it to find interaction. Like, I'll take your Fierce Guardianship, thank you. Or if I'm just expecting a Chain of Vapor, I'll take a Mental Misstep, or... usually it's a free counterspell. When I use Praetor's Grasp, it's usually some form of interaction if I have the solution in hand, or just finding someone else's win con. And it's not to stunt them. It's not like taking a Dakmar salvage from a Gitrog. That's just silly. I'm going to use it to my advantage. I'm not going to disproportionately affect the game by ruining one player's day. Okay. Sounds smarter to do Ad Nauseam Breach. Sounds smarter to do Ad Nauseam Breach. Yeah, generally, I think the deck devolves to Ad Nauseam Breach. Hoarding Broodlord is just a very easy way to set up with interaction a PETA. So do that. Also, it's convocable. Again, you're just going to have a lot of thralls, and instead of just popping them for draw 2, which is great, you can actually use them to convoke first, and then, provided you need utilities, you can use Tevesh to draw 2 cards. Hopefully you find some solutions going into the turn. But basically it's a saw in half line that leads to, we'll discuss hopefully a few ways to make that work more efficiently. Godhand Ukima, blah, blah, blah. Discuss Rice Reborn. The real question is, can the deck run Cursed Totem? Cursed Totem, yes you can, but I don't like running stacks. I don't like running stacks or cards. I think I even took Dothy Voidwalker out. We're not going to run any cards that don't progress our game plan actively. If you're trying to play a turbo list, then you shouldn't really be running anything outside of an opposition agent. You shouldn't really be running anything that's solely there to stunt your opponents. Like, that's more of a control stacks kind of play. Like, yeah, I'm trying to think of who really deserves Cursed Totem as a commander, but I wouldn't say Rograkh do. I don't think they really want it. And we're probably going to take out anything that is slow or progressive for our own board state. At any rate, this is a joke regarding Kinnan being so popular. Oh, we had a Kinnan player the other day, like, at our pod. Kinnan's good. Kinnan's fine. I don't really like Kinnan, but people play Kinnan and they win with Kinnan. It's clearly doing a thing. I just don't care for that thing. But yeah, Kinnan's up there. Card that I love playing with Spear into the Abyss is Inner Fire. Draw 40 cards, float 40 red. I'll have to look at Inner Fire really quick, and we can actually all look at it if we want. Okay. So, Inner Fire. Add 1 red to your mana pool for each card in your hands. It is 4 to cast, so it is a little excessive. But, you know, overkill is still a kill, right? I like that. I mean, obviously, you know, the normal combo, this is, I'm assuming you do the Peer into the Abyss and then you would cast that to start going. 40 is a lot, or whatever you're at. You're generally going to get there with all your fast mana and just the rituals that exist in the list. It's also 4 CMC that gets hit on the Ad Nauseam, and 4 is a lot. I've taken out all of the Deadly Rollick. The only thing I think that's 4 CMC that's interactive that I kept is not Deflecting Swat. It's the Ricochet Trap. It's the one that only costs 1 red if someone casts a blue spell. Always. Someone's cast a blue spell, and then it's 1 to redirect a spell. That I kept in. That makes total sense to me. But Burnt Offering is really the way to go here. You're going to kill a Hoarding Broodlord and make 8 mana. That's generally good. You also have some hijack effects in the deck. So if you have Claim the Firstborn, not so much, but if you use our Wrangle, you can wrangle someone else's like Crom and generate mana off of Burnt Offering. Like there's a couple ways to make mana off Burnt Offering outside of your own creatures. But generally speaking, the setup is always going to lend itself to, you know, the Hoarding Broodlord line. But yeah, it's not like it's squandered in the deck. It's a 1 CMC card. At any rate, all right. So let's talk about what's going on today. Hey, I'm Patrick Marlette, your local game guy, and thank you for joining me on Local Game Group's first The Tank. So I've been in the tank with this list recently. I just had a win with Rograkh and Tevesh after a long time of not playing this list. It sat dormant in my case, and I'm like, oh, well, you know what? I need something new to play on the channel because I love playing games for you guys on Friday Night Magic, and it's going to be more of a consistent thing. And I thought it's only fair that there are more variety, at least on my end, with what's seen at the table. So I'll bring Rograkh and Tevesh out, and let me see if I can brush it up. We've changed, I think, 10 or 11 cards. I say we. I've changed 10 or 11 cards, conversed with Will a little bit on it, and determined that the transmogrify stuff that we did before, not really essential anymore. We haven't gotten that many great spells by way of interaction and or sorcery speed spells or any new artifacts that really want to go in here, but we've got a whole lot of creatures that just want to be in this deck. So, and some land switch ups. So, added all those value creatures, gutted everything we could while still maintaining the integrity of the list. Played the deck. It turned out great. I wanted to just live the dream. I turn one Tevesh easily. Make Thrall, make Thrall, make Thrall. The whole board, it was a Tivit, Timnit pairing, and Kenrith. And I was the immediate threat as Rakdos from then on, because it's Tevesh. Oh my god, Tevesh is going to kill everyone, and no one was playing with Crom. So, thank goodness, they had to work really hard to get me. It ultimately was a Bowmaster that stopped me from ultimating. If I could, I would. However, the dream for me with my 10 Thrall, I had an absurd amount of Thrall, was, okay, well, I'm just going to tutor for Hoarding Broodlord and free cast it because I can. Now, I'd been missing land drops at this point. I had Underworld Breach in hand with interaction and enough to just go off there. The Hoarding Broodlord line was going to take more out of me so far as resources were concerned. And I was also, removing my blockers from potential attacks outside of the Tivit swinging at me. But, oh my gosh. So I Hoarding Broodlord, I go through the line, and then someone stops me. Okay, buy a Chain of Vapor. They had a 3 fairy online, so I couldn't cast the mental misstep that I Praetor's Grasp for because I was expecting the freaking Chain of Vapor. So I'm like, okay, well, this sucks. No one wins on rotation. That 3 fairy just keeping a wall up for everybody. Comes back to me, Hoarding Broodlord again. This time I go for an Underworld Breach line. I just use Hoarding Broodlord because I had Chain of Vapor happen while Saw in half was on the stack. My Saw in half was in the graveyard. So I wound up just using UB, getting some form of interaction. It turned out it wasn't necessary. It was like a sorcery removal because there was a Grafdigger's Cage on the board. So I wound up just getting, I think it was Mog Salvage. Mog Salvage the Grafdigger's Cage. Play through my turn, I win. I was just confused though when I sat there. I'm like, hey guys, this is going to be a second. I think I win here. Pretty sure. The Tivit player had no more interaction for me. And sadly, it took just a little too long for me to get there. And I don't really like doing that when I'm presenting a win. So I was really in the tank that whole time. They were really chill about it, but I was not chill about it. I want to fix that. So today we're going to go ahead and revise and make better Master Rograkh and Tevesh. These are 2 of my favorite legendaries for Commander to date. I absolutely love what Rograkh, Son of Raga, does for List. Just being a 0 CMC enabler, right? So your Mox Amber's online, your Infernal Plunge is playable, all of the things that you want to do that require a creature being there, this does for you. So normally I will let Rograkh go back to the CZ up until he starts costing 6 CMC to cast. And you're recasting Rograkh a lot during the game because Tevesh. Get to Tevesh in a second if you don't know what these guys do. But it's a 0/1 Kobold that has First Strike, Menace, and Trample, and Partner. The Menace is kind of appropriate now for this spell. Oh, I might have taken it out. Did I take it out, or is it Sorcery Speed? Tentative Connection. It's kind of appropriate for this new spell, Tentative Connection. Again, this was, I don't know if Ikoria was around when I made this list, but I definitely missed this spell. But it's a really good hijack spell if you need it. So it costs 3 less, 1 red. But I kind of want to be on the lookout for spells like this in the future. This one's a little too high costed in my opinion for this list, but what's nice about this card, gain control of target creature until end of turn, untap it, yada, yada, yada. None of that matters. Grab the biggest commander that was played, make it your own, attack with it, use it for whatever you want, and then eat it with Tevesh. Because it's a commander, you draw 3 cards. You did all that for 1 mana if Rograkh was on the battlefield. We have 2 spells that do more or less the same thing in the deck though. Wrangle hits the Crom and most of the big creatures, and Claim the Firstborn hits Tymna downwards. So we're not really needing that. However, something to note, the effects on this creature, even though it's 0/1, are relevant. And then you have Tevesh. 4 generic and a black. Just thought 4 generic was a good idea, so they did it. Comes in with 4 loyalty counters, and it's +2. You get to create 2 Thrall. They're black Thrall, the most important part, so that if you want to convoke a creature that's in black, you can pay for those black pips with the Thrall. You can also +1 to sacrifice a creature and draw 2 cards. If it's commander, draw 3 cards. What's cool is it's also planeswalkers, so if you wind up doing the gain control of all commanders and you just don't need that stinky Jeska you grabbed, you're not trying to triple attack with your Rograkh here, right? You can just go ahead and eat her as well. All right, so sacrifice another creature, planeswalker, draw the cards. Its ultimate's amazing. I think I've done it 2 or 3 times. It's rare. It really depends on the matchup. Sometimes people just don't have solutions for you. It's usually a bounce effect that's gonna get Tevesh off the field. So just hold up interaction for that turn. It could really be an REB or any redirect. You're gonna be fine. And keep him alive. Do the thing. If there isn't a flying attacker, right, you're also in the clear. So this is the deck. I think it's probably fair to start with trying out the deck and just showing you what it does, and then we'll go ahead and give it the revisions. I've left some things on the sideboard. I really feel like with how effective Hoarding Broodlord package has been, I want to add more to the Reanimate package. Right now it's just Entomb and Reanimate, right? The basic 1-2 punch. One's instant speed, one's sorcery speed. I want to look into the deck's play lines and see if we can't be achieving the same play lines at instant speed. Because right now I think it's mostly winning at sorcery speed, which I don't necessarily like. So do we add a Necromancy instead of an Animate Dead? Do we keep our, do we add a Corpse Dance, right? Do we add anything that's going to let us do the thing at instant speed? I want to look through those play lines with you guys. There's a little bit of protection here with Kai's Ghost Form. Necropotence has been taken out because you know what? It's odd. It's really good. I love the card. It's fantastic. But when you're doing Underworld Breach lines, it's really difficult to deal with your own Necropotence. We can win like just on the stack. We don't need to use UB to win. And sometimes you can just go hard on the Necro, hopefully don't brick, and then do the Reanimate strategy while things are about to be exiled from your graveyard on the cleanup step. We can talk about how that functions. If you guys know what I'm talking about, you do have a way to interact with stuff that's getting discarded into a Necropotence. So there is stuff there. Spiteful Banditry, I gotta tell you, I really wish I had it the other day. With the amount of just value creatures that get played out, I mean, and it's usually black creatures, it's from the Orcish Bowmasters to the opposition agents that you have to contend with, any of the stacks from white, those hate bears, you just want to be able to clear them. This is going to be long-term value because no one's going to care that this is on the battlefield afterwards, and you're just going to create treasure every time a creature dies, which is pretty frequent in cEDH. Usually people are trying to remove things unless we're all drawing poorly. We don't have our single target removal, or we've wasted all of our mass board wipes. But that's something I want to add to the list. It'll help us into our storm turns. And there's a few other cards here, but we can get into why I made the choices I made in a second. Really, last but not least, is just Beseech the Mirror. This really just says, go ahead and find Underworld Breach and go for the combo now. That's really what this says to me. There might be other value cards in the deck, but for 4 CMC to find and play Underworld Breach on and just get it online, like if this just gets to go off, you win. I think you win, depending on how you've played and how full your graveyard is. It's important to note, to do the full package, you need to spend its bargain cost. And bargain is to sacrifice yada yada or token. Something something or token. And we're really just looking at the thralls. We're going to sacrifice a thrall and do this. Okay, so let's just see if we can do a thing. This is okay. So we have an Ancient Tomb, we have a Mox Amber, we have a Lion's Eye Diamond. I'm not kidding you. So I thought I took Dauthi Voidwalker out, and the other day, like, there was not... Its effect is really good, but it feels counterintuitive to what the list is doing. I feel like I would rather Chrome Mox this than actually play it. It's not a bad card. Don't get me wrong. It's a really good card. Really good card. I think it needs to be another form of interaction or something that's actually going to help us get ahead. I was very fortunate when I was able to hardcast Hoarding Broodlord for the Mox Salvage. That's right here, to remove that Grafdigger's Cage to open up my Underworld Breach. And, you know, another effect that just gets me there, like that, I think is more important than Dothi Voidwalker. Redemption for the boys. I built this deck from your video 2 years ago. Quaiko, was it really that long? My gosh. Hey, before we continue, just to help out the channel, I always forget to say this. If you could leave a like, if you've enjoyed the content up till now, if you enjoyed the tete-a-tetes we've been having, leave a like. Leave as many comments as you want. Try to get them in due time, but also spam an emote. It could be the ones that are in the chat, or you can actually type in emotes and have them appear on screen. All of that really helps the channel when these live streams go live. So please do that. Okay, so we can actually play this hand, and I'll show you what I mean. I wouldn't necessarily recommend you do this, but like you could get Tevesh out turn 1. Do you see it? Do you see it? Okay, so we'll do the Mox Amber, we'll do the Lion's Eye Diamond. If we were to play Arcane Signet, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we're going to tap Ancient Tomb. We're going to play Arcane Signet. You can break your hand. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this, but you can discard all of these and play Tevesh. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See how easy that was? We literally just opened this hand up. If I was on the play, I would do this, potentially. Potentially. Because I'm going to go back up to 3 in a second. And I know I have mana requisite to play Rograkh next turn. This is where I'm saying, if you've got that one player, like, you're at a board with 4 to 5 color soup, and someone's like, I'm going to mind break trap that Tevesh cast. It's just too good. They're really just doing it because it fuels their ego. They're really just doing it because they don't like you. They're really just doing it because it's a dumb idea. If I literally sacrifice my game to play Tevesh out on turn 1 and you make it a 3-person game and you're the one to waste removal on this, that's not effectively a win. Please. Wait, did we do a video on threat assessment? I really need to do a video on threat assessment to help you. I'm really bringing this up because it happens to me all the time. So I wouldn't recommend you do this, but we're going to do it here just because it's fun. I really wouldn't recommend you do this. Someone's going to think, oh, yeah, mess this guy up. And oh, Pat, you discarded a DT. What are you? That's so stupid. No, I didn't discard a DT. When I get Underworld Breach, it's still gonna be it's still gonna be a DT. We'll draw 3 cards. Hopefully they're not crap. Yeah, they're not so bad. And then we've still got Ricochet Trap next turn. Cool, Opposition Agent. I'd probably just hold for the Opposition Agent at this point, right? We can do obviously Rograkh. Do Rograkh again. I would probably not draw 3. Odds are unlikely that my opponents are really going to be able to attack into Tevesh right now, so you could either make Thrall for blockers if there's something that could hit you. The Tymna's not going to swing at you, though. The Tymna wants to do the same thing you're doing. That player wants to draw, so Tymna's not going to attack into Tevesh if that's the only creature out. I would be wary again if you do. I play against a lot of blue farm. A Crom will attack into you, and +2 is more than +1. So that is also important to note. You might want to just do the Thrall for that. But while we're still in an advantageous position, it would not hurt to kill a Rograkh again. And like I said, the magic number's 6. So I will put this in the CZ unless I feel like I'm going to go for an Underworld Breach very soon. Then this is more fuel for the Underworld Breach fire. But for now, I'm just going to put it back in the CZ. I will draw 3 cards. We didn't play our land because I wanted to, so whoa, I put it on the battlefield. We didn't play our land because we wanted to see if we pulled into a better land. I would say Scalding Tarn's a little bit better, right? Cool. Cool. If it's safe now, because I just never want to meet an opposition agent again, nor a poorly played one, I will probably crack this now and just get my land. It's going to be a bad lands, obviously, and get that out of the way. Shuffle, 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 shuffle. We have 6 cards after a LED turn 1, right? So there are very easy ways to effectively get to where we need to go. If you're not seeing it, we can opposition agent out steal a tutor. We can either Scheming Symmetry into our opposition agent, or we can honestly Scheming Symmetry and just eat a thing to get our draw. The draw for whatever the win is. At this point, it's really just going to be Underworld Breach. I would just want to find more interaction in Underworld Breach, but we should have a turn 3 win here, provided we play our cards right. We have our land drop. Again, we have the mana to play out the opposition agent. I would definitely use this on like the top deck tutor or something that's going to help our game. I wouldn't use this on an opponent that is tutoring a thing that I don't need, or from a deck that I don't generally need effects from. I'll tutor this against the list. And in Rakdos, generally speaking, most of the other fast list, they're all going to be using or doing the same strategy I'm trying to do. So I might opposition agent out like their Underworld Breach to make this easier on me, and then Scheming Symmetry up the rest of what I need. I wouldn't recommend using Tevesh to eat opposition agent. You might want to like hard cast the monkey out if you want to go into the Scheming Symmetry, but honestly, with, again, the Demonic Tutor in our graveyard, if we go for Underworld Breach, we have a win. So you go DT from our graveyard, Grinding Station. Grinding Station enters the battlefield, trigger, off itself. Grinding Station eats Mox Amber, mill 3, play Mox Amber. Use it for the mana necessary. And we'll have mana requisite to cast not only Dual Caster Mage, but also Ricochet Trap into that turn. I'm sorry, I'm really going ahead of myself here. If you've ever played this deck, that's probably the cleanest way to get there. And then you go until you hit Grape Shot. Provided you have a mana positive rock. In this instance, we have Mox Amber, and you can have that roll into anything else at this point. But we're going to only be able to produce black going into this, so we will need to play Rograkh back out. At any rate. Okay, we live, babies. Dr. Burno, thank you for the emojis. Booyah. I feel like this deck is semi-kill on sight. Mindbreak Trap has been cruel as it might be as cruel as it might be to play. Not really. Like, if it's turn 0 for everyone else, and I'm on the play, and I literally LED to go into Tevesh, and you'd elect that for the Vigilante Justice, for the rest of the board, you're going to use your free counterspell, it didn't have to be Mindbreak Trap, to thwart me. You are making it a 3-person game, and you're out of counter. Now whatever your opponents are doing, they're just simply going to get away with it, if not combating one another. And then what are you going to do? Are you going to use your next free counter spell or your next whatever spell to stop the next guy? Like, wait until a win is represented. Like, I think the time to do the thing is when I go for an Underworld Breach, right? It makes more sense to counter the win. You wouldn't counter a Crom on the stack, right? Like, or you wouldn't counter a Timna, despite the fact that they obviously grind value. It doesn't feel as immediate, but trust me, in those games where the last game I played, it was 2 blue farms, and they were just allowed to get away with it. And I don't want to out anyone, but there was a very single-sided Fire Covenant that hit my Esper Sentinel, my Oswald, and then like one other person's Esper Sentinel. And I think that same game they'd also played their Dam. So all of board wipes were gone, and guess what? The other blue, because this person was answering, they're trying to mess up our tempo, my tempo. The other person just got to get away with it after they opposition nation, Bowmaster, yada yada yada, right? It's never good to make it a 3-person game, is what I'm saying. Because I might have had solutions. I still did. I honestly was still able to play, but it was an awful, awful game. I was definitely never going to win from that situation. It doesn't make sense. It's also just, I don't know. Maybe this is what casual players mean. Like, it's unfun when shit like that happens. But for some reason, people think those are good plays, and I don't want to deter people from making plays they think are appropriate. But shit, that shit really stunts everyone. All right, isn't your deck a turbo deck though? Yeah, counter the Ad Nauseam, counter the Underworld Breach. Rakdos Storm the Grape Shot? I don't know. After the Underworld Breach lands, you're cooked. If I Ad Nauseam turn 1 and not Tevesh, you're cooked. If I play Tevesh and have 0 mana and I draw 3 cards, the best thing I can do is maybe play some fast mana. I'm not winning the game. When you're playing against a turbo list, counter the wins. Don't counter draw utilities. Right. Is it sometimes good to take players out? Yeah, if you're playing a stacks, if you're playing, let's go, you're doing like an Ashai Jessica thing, and your goal is to slow down the game and nuke players, then yes, like player elimination works. It also makes sense like if it's a board where there's a stacks player who just has a flush board of hate bears, and really the only way to remove at this point, if you failed on your culling ritual, all your mass board wipes, it's usually Toxic Deluge, Fire Covenant, culling ritual that are going to hit those hate bears. Archon of Emeria, certain things are going to be over that mark. You're going to have to find new ways to remove them. Player removal is definitely an option. Those games, it makes sense. It's all situational. But stunting a turbo player from getting value is not a good play. It's not. Sorry. I'm sorry. It's just not. Because you are really just enabling everyone else with your free counterspell or whatever you're doing. It could be a counterspell. It could be removal. Removal's fine. That makes sense. Like if you feel like this Tevesh is getting too far ahead, then yes, you usually wait until it's about to ultimate or like it's near ultimate. Again, that's just one of those plays. You're not really concerned about it until it's going to do the thing, right? It's not a win, but it's hard to lose when you have everyone else's commander. It's important to note that you could Chain of Vapor your own thing to your hand, like if that's the option you want to go with, and then save yourself that, right? But generally speaking, yeah, you wait until the thing's about to happen. Just stifle everything. Stifle even counters the storm triggers on Flusterstorm. No one runs Stifle. So let's go ahead and just take a look at the list, and let's go ahead and consider our cards. So there are a few different play lines here. Ad nauseum is not a play line. It just enables us. Pure into the Abyss is not a play line. It just enables us. But to get to those cards to win the game, we can very easily do, again, Reanimated Hoarding Broodlord. Hoarding Broodlord finds Saw in half. And as a refresher, we'll go ahead and just take a look at the cards that we're operating with now. Hoarding Broodlord is an 8 CMC creature. We've discussed this combo to death, but I do want to just cover it really quickly here. So when it enters the battlefield, you search your card for your library for a card, exile it face down. For as long as the card remains exiled, you may play it. Spells you cast from exile, it doesn't matter if it's this card or any other card you cast from exile. So any of those, exile 2 cards face down, you may play them till the end of turn or until the end of your next turn. We'll also have Convoke. Right? It itself has Convoke, what I was talking about earlier, really good withdrawal. So basically, you use Hoarding Broodlord to find Saw in half. Saw in half is really, really good. In its instant speed, which I think people forget. So you can do a lot with this card. You do not have to remove your own creature, but don't hit someone's dock side. Or if someone's using Saw in half, like redirect it to your dock side. But destroy target creature. If that creature dies this way, its controller creates 2 tokens that are copies of that creature, except the base power and toughness are half rounded up. What's important to note is that when a creature is a copy of another creature, it maintains all the same attributes. So typing, subtyping, up to its cost. So Hoarding Broodlord, they're going to be 3/4s? I'm sorry, they're going to be 4 3s. But they're both going to be 8 CMC. So the next one finds Burn Offering, followed by Peer into the Abyss. Right? So I know Peer into the Abyss is kind of maybe out of fashion for people. It's still really good, though. Basically, it's 8 CMC, and you can draw half your deck, lose half your life. Here it's very easy to do because Burnt Offering, which we showcased earlier, it's also instant speed, lets you make Rakdos mana in any combination based off of the CMC of a creature. So it's convocable. Tap the Hoarding Broodlord, use Burnt Offering for free, generate the 8 mana to cast Peer into the Abyss. Right? So Peer into the Abyss, you can also convoke any other creatures you might have remaining. Generally speaking, depending on how you do this, you'll have Thrall to pay for all of this. Right? So like I said earlier, when I won the game, when I hard cast Hoarding Broodlord, it doesn't... Don't do that. I did it because I could. Don't do that. It's much smarter to save the Thrall to help you convoke out the rest of the play line so that you're holding up mana for interaction, like your Tybalt's Trickery, your Imp's Mischief, your whatever. don't just hard cast Hoarding Broodlord because you can. I specifically tutored for Hoarding Broodlord to live the dream. And it worked, but I wouldn't recommend it. So draw half your deck, play all your fast mana, play all of your rituals, and then go into an Underworld Breach. LED is going to fuel your graveyard with all the cards in your hand. If the Underworld Breach resolves, you're probably going to win. So the remainder of the play lines are, and our win cons are as such. Right now we have Dualcaster Mage. So Dualcaster Mage is really cool, and I absolutely love this card because it functionally does so much for red that red doesn't have. So when it enters the battlefield, you can copy an instant or sorcery card. You may choose new targets for the copy. For us, it just vanilla, like the ceiling's really high and the floor is copying a counterspell. An overcosted counterspell, one generic more than counterspell. The ceiling is copying someone else's Peer into the Abyss. Or the ceiling is copying someone else's Ad Nauseam while it's on the stack, and then stopping their Ad Nauseam, right? Or, furthermore, you just win the game. Now, you'll likely have seen this old combo, Twin Flame. So Twin Flame here is good for copying Dockside. It's good for copying any value creature, really. It's particularly good when you target a Thrall, and then you cast Dualcaster Mage. So the first one will resolve and you'll get a Thrall, but you're also netting a bunch of Dualcaster Mages that win on combat. So not infinite combats, just infinite combat damage. The only thing that can really stop you is like an Orm's Chant. I would say that's maybe the most commonly used silence that also has a kicker that stops people from engaging in combat. Or if there's a Silent Arbiter, or if there's a few things, but generally people don't play the stop combat shenanigans. That's why Godo gets away with it. But not only do you have Twin Flame, oh wait, there's the Saw in Half. Oh, Saw in Half's a thing. Oh, we're doing Underworld Breach to win, so sorcery speed, right? Enchantment. Oh, Saw in Half lets me destroy target creature and make new copies. Well, I do Saw in Half on a Thrall. I do Dualcaster Mage, copy Saw in Half. Saw in Half sees Dualcaster Mage, target it, destroy it. This is the copy. We have 2 Dualcaster Mages. You can literally win a couple ways here. So you can just make an infinite army of 1/1s rounded up, or I can cast Saw in Half and Lightning Bolt, or I can cast a Grape Shot into a Saw in Half. And from here, I can use Dualcaster Mage. 1 copies the Saw in Half, 1 copies the damage effect. Bolt, 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 bolt. That's entirely instant speed. Grape Shot is sorcery speed. If you haven't seen Grape Shot, I feel like this is kind of a classic. I used the Japanese one. It's 2 CMC for 1 damage at sorcery speed, but it also has an effect called Storm, which lets you copy it for each spell cast during the turn, right? So there's the original and then there's copies for each one. It's kind of like Replicate, like there's multiple copies that people have to contend with. Again, Flusterstorm is usually the best solution for this. Generally speaking, that's why I've relied on Ether Flux Reservoir, but it's fine. It's just 2 CMC versus 4 CMC. If you fail in the first Grape Shot and they Flusterstorm it, like if that was our 1 out, you've likely filled up your graveyard and can just go for it again. So it's really not a big deal. Yeah, so that's one playline. I want to check in with you guys to make sure we're all still alive. I know I'm just talking at you, but we really want to refine what the list is doing, and then I want to play test it again. I think we want to aim for Hoarding Broodlord more. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know how it feels because it's got done to me a lot. It's a reason I cut Force of Negation from my deck. You cut Force of Negation from your deck? Just got back. Sorry, I had to dip out. You're good. Love Peta. Peta is delicious. Peta is delicious. Saw in Half is in the list, right? Yes. I hate Rakdos as whole. My least favorite color combo, but this deck always seemed fun. Oh, good. You should try it. You should, Dr. Byrne. Honestly, like, I don't know. I made Captive Kingpin on the channel. I think we all collectively enjoyed it. It's super good at what it does, and it would also probably use Hoarding Broodlord very well, what with all the stuff being exiled and you being able to cast it. Super nonsensical in that deck. I still like Rograkh and Tevesh more. I think it's just a more consistent list with Rograkh. I know it seems silly to say a 0 CMC creature is so good, but you'll notice half the utilities in this deck are really there just because Rograkh exists. It's really, really fun. It's really fun if you're trying to do the turbo thing. Sonhaf is amazing with Hoarding Broodlord. Yes. Twin Flame Dockside and Anarchist are Infinite Anarchy. Yes, it is. So what DOS was referring to is you would use Twin Flame, but you would use Twin Flame for its additional cost, which is Strive, and you're able to copy two things. I wouldn't say that it's enough for us to include Anarchy, but I think it is notable. So I want to look at a few more ways to get to Hoarding Broodlord, and then potentially why don't we look at some more interaction for these colors. I want to look up channel effects. I want to look up instant speed spells and maybe even some sorcery speed spells. And I've met, like someone said, they built this list like 2 years ago. I really haven't looked deeply into Rakdos since then. So let's go ahead and look at those effects. So right now we have two ways to entomb, well, a couple things. Entomb just hits anything. This hits any non-legendary card. One of the issues I had with Rograkh was a fair number of ways to get it to reanimate status as a secondary line of play outside of Reality Scramble. Hoarding Broodlord's not legendary, so you can Unmarked Grave Hoarding Broodlord. Sadly, this is sorcery speed, but in most cases when you go for this, it's probably fine. It's also just something to fuel your Underworld Breach pile for later. It's generally going to be the thing you need after you've UB'd. So Unmarked Grave's amazing. We also have Entomb, like I mentioned. So we have two ways to put it in the bin, but we only have one way to reanimate it, which is reanimate. So I kind of want to put in another solution here for that, but we have two sorcery speed Entomb reanimate effects, but we only have the one instant speed Entomb. So I kind of want something to complement this, right? So I'm thinking that it would maybe behoove us to add an instant speed reanimate effect instead. Corpse Dance, you know, there are Corpse Dance lines for Dockside Extortionist, right? So you pay 2 and a black and the buyback. It's 5 total. Return the top card of your graveyard, top creature card rather, from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature gains haste until end of turn. Exile at the beginning of the next end step. So if you had a way to sacrifice Dockside Extortionist, you can actually infinitely produce mana. Here, is that good? Not necessarily. We don't really have a payoff in the command zone. That's also something we can do. But this is an instant speed way to just get to our Hoarding Broodlord, which is the most important aspect of this card. I think Necromancy might be the perfect medium, though, because we can use it with permanence, or we can use it at flash and then have it go bye-bye. But we're trying to win with it effectively. So the reason I care to do this is because we can entomb Necromancy, Hoarding Broodlord, Saw in Half, everything I'm saying we can do at instant speed, ad nauseum, right? Burnt Offering ad nauseum. So with all of our Thrall in the Burnt Offering mana into ad nauseum, which again is also being convoked, so it goes from 5 to who knows how little, we're actually able to win at instant speed that way. But we don't run the Reiterate line of play anymore in this deck. And before, it was Reiterate into Jessica's Will or Reiterate Burnt Offering. Because you can Reiterate Burnt Offering if you're producing 7 or more mana and make infinite mana. And buy back. And then off the ad nauseum, provided you got Lightning Bolt, which is just in the deck because it's good removal and people should run more removal, you can actually bolt people to death. To death. You can bolt people to death at instant speed. So this is a good way to win over top of someone, provided you have the mana requisite to do this, and it's all eased by the fact you're using Hoarding Broodlord. So Shallow Grave is also okay, Dossa. I'm with you. Shallow Grave is 1 generic and a black. I don't think I added it to the list, but it's an oldie and a goodie. I think I have a copy still. I really hope I do. But you do the same thing. Top creature from your graveyard, 76, remove that creature from the game, exile it at the beginning of the next end step. It's essentially Corpse Dance, but way cheaper. I still like Necromancy most because of its permanence, because it doesn't need to be your graveyard. and because it is instant speedable. So right now, I feel like Reiterate's still good for the list, but non-essential. What I really liked about Reiterate as well is that you could use it with Lightning Bolt, or you could use it even with a Praetor's Grasp on the stack, and that was a good way to... Reiterate Praetor's Grasp was always a good way to exile opponents' libraries, at which point they don't really have... They might have like a Noxious Revival. If they have a Noxious Revival and they Noxious Revival their thing and play Thassa's Oracle from hand, if they just had that magic combo, then they're good. But generally speaking, if you've Praetor's Grasp everyone's deck, you'll have the means to counter it. So even with the effort, I think you win. Pretty sure you win. So having the Reiterate line of play just makes all of this cleaner, I feel. Although it's 3 CMC and it's kind of high costed, and it only works with 2 spells. Jeska's Will being the weaker of the two. Because you're not always going to have someone with 7 cards in hand. And that's, again, the magic number. It's 3 generic, 2 generic, and a red. So if you do Jeska's Will, you can make not infinite red, but enough red. You can actually make infinite red. What am I talking about? You'll just run out of deck before you run out of red. But the red can be used to give you color fixing off Arcane Signet and all your fast mana, yada, yada, yada. Well, it's not really fast mana if you have to pay for it. You know what I mean. Play all your artifacts. I kind of want to look for more ways to win at instant speed, though. Orcish Bowmaster is technically a way to win at instant speed. If it's on the battlefield, if you made copies of Orcish Bowmaster, you can make infinite copies of Orcish Bowmaster and just have them ping people. That's another way to win. And we would do that by manipulating... we can actually, if the Dualcaster Mage goes into our Son half, you'd have 2 copies select Son half, and you can change the target. You choose Orcish Bowmaster and Dualcaster Mage. So if you have a previous Orcish Bowmaster out from like a turn ago, then that's actually really good. So obviously, does that change what we want to do with Hoarding Broodlord? Potentially, right? All right, so today it's just a lot of, like the name suggests, thought processing. This might not be the sexiest thing for everyone, but if you do care about efficiency of play lines, then this will be fun for you. This is just something I've been needing to do. That's what the tank is. It's really my hobby list. But also, if there are other lists that you want me to revisit and work through, we can do it together. Another card I wanted to add was potentially Curse Mirror. I feel like there's infinite combo lines, but I don't know them. If you know any infinite combo lines with Curse Mirror, please let me know. It's 3 CMC, but it's a copy effect. Like, I can just have this enter as a dockside from anyone's board, right? So that's pretty darn effective at doing the thing. I don't think it's enough to run like a Goblin Welder or Engineer to find it, but it's still really good. Right now I've cut all of the 2 CMC rocks outside of Arcane Signet. I've kept Grim Monolith because it plays well into Tevesh. We obviously have Grinding Station because it's quite good with Underworld Breach. And Wishclaw Talisman because it's one of the better tutors. Metavolt Skull Clamp. Skull Clamp is really... Look, Tevesh is good. Tevesh is great. But Skull Clamp, equally great, right? This is good to pile on to Tevesh. Tevesh is just allowed to make Thrall, and then you can use your mana to draw, right? I knew Curse Mirror combos, but I can't remember them anymore. Blood. Well, if you remember them, please let me know. Springleaf Drum is just a good way to ramp out later. It's also good color fixing. It's something that our lands do as well. We have a couple of lands that do the same effect, but what its value is here is more or less color fixing, but it's essentially ramp after you get it out of the way, like that first cast. Because it could be your land drop per turn, Rograkh, and then you use the Springleaf Drum off Rograkh to essentially have 1 mana. I don't like keeping hands like that. I feel like this is better to pull later, but I also feel like it's a little weak now. Springleaf Drum. It's still on the list for now, but we do need to incorporate far more cards. We have Chrome Rocks, Jeweled Lotus, Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petal, Mana Crypt, Mox Amber. This is the best deck for Mox Amber. It's the best deck for Mox Amber. Mox Diamond and Mox Opal. Mox Opal feels a little weak here, but bearing in mind, after you've had Nauseamed, you should be able to hit the threshold on Metalcrafts. Like, it's not going to be that hard. The only thing I really want to incorporate in this list, creature-wise, that I haven't yet is Mayhem Devil. I feel like it's... So I've gotten rid of a lot of removal for other forms of kind of creature-centric removal, namely Orcish Bowmaster. And I honestly think Orcish Bowmaster kind of puts this one to bed, but I still feel like in Rakdos it would be valuable to have this because there are plenty of ways to kill your opponents with this alone. So say if we have Underworld Breach on the battlefield and we're doing the grinding station thing I mentioned earlier. So we're grinding station out our Mana Crypt. Mana Crypt mills 3 cards. We escape Mana Crypt, exiling 3 cards, generate 2 generic. You just keep doing this until you hit colored mana and Mayhem Devil. Play Mayhem Devil out. Provided you have the requisite amount of cards to escape, then you may proceed with the grinding station line of play. You can even just play Dockside Extortionist from your graveyard into your grinding station. Once you do that, remember, grinding station says whenever an artifact comes into play, you can untap grinding station. If Dockside Extortionist enters the battlefield and generates 5 treasures, you get 5 untaps on the stack. Break 1, break 1, break 1. You can work through all of the mill you need while also damaging your opponents. But even just sacrificing the treasures is enough with a Mayhem Devil. So this is a really easy way to kill the board just by circumstance during the Underworld Breach line of play. Do I feel like it's necessary for that? No. But if for some reason your other solutions are exiled, it feels like it's maybe a good utility as an outlet. You guys let me know. I don't know if we want to incorporate it, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on Mayhem Devil. Is it still good in 2023? Should we play it? So, I'm curious if it's still good in 2023. Let me know in the comments here. I also just want to know if you think it's good for this list. I feel like it's unnecessary and I can't find a slot for it, but I know I want to take Dothy Voidwalker out. It's a little slow for this deck. Yes, it's great. It's great. It's great grave hate. That's cool. That's a stacks thing. You can sacrifice it and cast a spell from someone else's graveyard. That's cool. It's slow though, right? So this isn't able to do that instantaneously. It's something that's part of a setup. What I like about something like Opposition Agent is even though it only does it the once, virtually once, like no one's going to play a tutor into this unless you do the Scheming Symmetry, right? Someone has mentioned that earlier. This does it on the cast. You should be stealing something of value on the cast. So I feel like Opposition Agent is just what Dothy Voidwalker wants to be for this deck and isn't necessary. Again, Dockside Extortion is self-explanatory. Ragavan is just another way to help you ramp out into a turn 2 Tevesh. I would not keep a hand because it had Ragavan just because. I feel like the dash on Ragavan is almost better than the hard cast because it's a good way to effectively remove a top deck tutor. Especially if people are tapping sideways because they don't see you have a creature active that could really do anything, right? Generally speaking, like the Tymna isn't going to swing into Tevesh, nor you as a player because you have a wall of blockers, so you're usually generally safe. You're going to get eaten up by the flyers. But if there is a player you can hit with Ragavan, I feel like the dash is more effective. I still think it's good in the list. I haven't actually purchased this card for the deck yet because 1, it's heinously expensive. 2, I can't make sense of whether I like it here or not. I never had a chance to play it. I'm using a proxy. I haven't had a chance to play it, but I still feel like it's good. I feel like we should maybe agree or disagree on this one. Been trying to spicy new tech for Rakdos. Can't think of any. You're running Wild Magic Surge, right? No. No, I'm not. I'm not. We'll look at it though. It's it already reads like it's pretty good. There might be some good new black cantrip cards that require sacrifice as a payoff. There likely is. Like I said earlier, Bargain from Wilds of Eldraine within Beseech the Mirror. This is pretty damn good. Again, it's pay 4, kill a Thrall, get Underworld Breach. That's really how it reads. Again, they were smart to put the cutoff at 4 because otherwise it would be pay 4, cast ad nauseum. I don't know if that would have been format shaping or breaking, or if anyone would have really reached for that, but that would have been something you could do, because it doesn't need to be a permanent spell. You can literally search your library for a card and then cast it for free if it was bargained. Otherwise, this is just an overcosted tutor, right? It doesn't feel good off the ad nauseum, but this is a really good enabler, and it will help you not brick. So I still like it for that. I also think that if this is what you grab with Hoarding Broodlord, in certain circumstances, this might just be the more appropriate play. It's also convocable. So in this deck, amazing. So good. So I want to make room for Beseech the Mirror. I can't say I want to make room for Mayhem Devil. I'm just gauging your opinion on this. I don't know if we should necessarily run it in this. But yeah. Give me a good reason as to why we should run it, and then I'll consider it. I gave you how it's an out. Let me know the what's more department. All right. Underworld Breach is our only enchantment right now, and I already said this, but I think Necromancy makes sense here. Again, the fact that we can Necromancy into a Hoarding Broodlord and set up a dual caster mage line is really potent. It's going to have to be, though, there's no good or clean way to do this. So let's just say that we want to win at instant speed. We entomb. So, and this is, let's say the play line is, I have Orcish Bowmaster out from a turn earlier. And I go entomb, Necromancy, that's 4 mana. Entomb, Necromancy, my Hoarding Broodlord out. I go to get Sonhalf. I run out the Sonhalf. And then I get my dual caster mage. I'm trying to win at instant speed. And there should be better play lines for an instant speed win. So I'd love to figure out what else we can do. There's probably something in the list that I'm just not seeing. But with Orcish Bowmasters, you can do the dual caster mage and the dual caster mage and Sonhalf line. The only issue is you need to get Sonhalf back to your hand. There's no good way to recur it, I don't think. So that play line, although instant, is not easy to accomplish. I think that it's probably better to just run out the ad nauseum and then play a Final Fortune, which is also in the deck. If you haven't seen this card, it's a gas. Final Fortune is instant speed, take another turn after this one. So basically you reclaim the turn order, and you win after ad nauseum, right? You just have a flush hand and you play your turn. Generally speaking, that's how I've won at instant speed, is just bringing it back to sorcery speed for myself. But if there's a way to win on the stack over someone else, that's probably more important. So I'd like to find that. But let me look at the card you're talking about. And please, any suggestions you have for the list, just good utilities, just good removal, just good interaction, let me know. So Wild Magic Surge is double red, destroy target permanent opponent controls. Its controller reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a permanent card that shares a card type with that permanent. It doesn't say non-land. You can literally destroy a land. Like, if you notice someone's color starved, you could actually... You could actually kill, like, their whatever colored mana that they're lacking. That's kind of cool. Unless they hit the land they need, but we'll see. They put that card in the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of their library in a random order. This seems nice, but I feel like this might inadvertently throw the game for yourself. Do people like Wild Magic Surge? I don't know. It's almost like Tybalt's Trickery, right? I mean, it is essentially Tybalt's Trickery. And Tybalt's Trickery is in the deck, so it's a little bit easier to cast, mind you. Choose 1, 2, 3 at random. Its controller mills that many cards, exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile an online card with a different name than that spell. They may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then they put the exiled cards on the bottom of their library in a random order. So it's a little more nonsensical in its wording, but they're not too dissimilar. I think double red Wild Magic Surge, it kind of takes the same spot as I have my Fork and Reverberate. I run both Fork and Reverberate because I like copying spells, and these two are kind of premium in red for that. personally speaking, it's also really good to just like copy your own seething song, or like if you need to ramp more into a turn or ramp more into a win, you can use Fork and Reverberate on your desk as well, your Burnt Offering, your seething song, or so many things. So these have more utility than I think people give them credit for, and I feel like it kind of slots into that part of the list. We can look for a spot for it though. I'm not really sure I necessarily want it. Could swap Mock Salvage for Wild. No, sorry. Mock Salvage is important because you're trying to do the thing quickly, and what happens is you're mana starved and you're trying to win with ritual mana on the stack. So having a thing that's free over a thing that's double red is always going to be better. And generally speaking, the stuff that's going to hit a graveyard, it's usually artifact based, right? Grafdigger's Cage is the biggest offender, but we also got Soulless Jailer. Like, there are a couple things that stop Underworld Breach, and they're generally artifacts. I do like the fact that the double red spell you're referring to hits multiple things, any permanent, but Mock Salvage in my book is just one of those cards, especially if you're solely in Rakdos, that you should keep. It won me my last game. So I've been using it for years. I'm kind of, I'm a simp for the salvage, so I'm not going to get rid of that, but we can consider something else. It is 3 CMC, so maybe it hurts, but really don't mind taking 3 life for that card. It's still quite good. We didn't look over our land base. I think I've put in most of the utility cards that should go in here now, to include the Mycosynth Garden. If you guys haven't seen the Mycosynth Garden, this was new to me a while back, but you can pay X and tap it to make a copy of your Mana Vault. Don't copy Mana Vault. But you can pay X and tap it to make Mycosynth Garden become a copy of target non-token artifact you control the mana value of X. So you can double down on Mana Crypt and just have a turn, likely a turn 1 again. Well, you'd have to wait. A turn 2 Tevesh, right? So this kind of guarantees it, provided you have your land drop for the next turn. This kind of guarantees it. I wouldn't say that this is like the most keepable land because it is also just producing generic, but it can also copy Mox Amber. Be wary that, you know, if you don't have either of your commanders, Mox Amber is kind of useless. There are, is there another legend in the list? Ragavan. So you can make red off Ragavan as well, but it's maybe not the best. It's not the most reliable way to ramp, but it's really good into a Mana Crypt for sure. Of our fast mana, that's the one. You could technically make it into a Lion's Eye Diamond as well, if you needed more mana, and that's not a bad idea either. Because, oh wait, because, am I mistaken? Because Lion's Eye Diamond doesn't require you tap it, right? This is why I bring that up with Mycosynth Garden. You just have to discard your hand and sacrifice Lion's Eye Diamond. So you could use it for that and double down on your colors. You could go triple black, triple red, or well, I said double down. You could go 6 red, 6 black, however you want. Mycosynth Gardens is really good. That's been added. You have the Survivor Encampment and some other things. I added Mount Doom, and I took out Emergence Zone because I found it was too much of an investment, and to play at instant speed for a win, generally speaking, was not necessary with the Final Fortune plays that are available for this deck. So I took it out and I added Mount Doom, and I added another good, I added the Mycosynth Gardens. Yeah, that's what happened. Good points. Thanks for explaining. You have a whole idea for how this deck should look. Not fully in tune with that yet. No, that's fine. So, I mean, again, the goal here is I've been in the tank for this deck for a while, and I just want to refine it and get the play lines set up. And ultimately, after this deck is revised, once we get through the tank, I'm gonna probably set up a proper primer for you guys, or you could just watch this video, skip ahead. I'll timestamp it so that it's easier for you all. That way we can go ahead and all look at the play lines and be able to get to them more easily, much more easily, after we've revised this. But I think I've added Necromancy to the list. I think I did. We're going to end the poll that's going now because I wanted to add a new poll. I want to see if we like Ragavan in the deck. Ragavan, still good in 2023? Let me know if you like Ragavan here. I'm kind of lukewarm on Ragavan right now. We do want to make space for... I would like to potentially reintroduce... I would like to potentially reiterate. I would also potentially like Beseech the Mirror. But, so far as instant speed spells are concerned, I think it's important you know where I'm coming from with these. I've already made my point on Mog Salvage. Fire Covenant is one of the best instant speed spells in the game. I said this years ago. It's still true now. Yes, it's 3 CMC. It's amazing. You should run it in every list that can run Fire Covenant because more people need mass removal. And this is really good targeted removal. Abrade, it's still really good. I can't help but feel that there's a better card than Abrade. I feel like I did a review with you guys and I found something and I want to look over the instant speed spells in a second. But yeah, we're missing that. Tainted Pack, we have a land base specifically for Tainted Pack, but it's also just a good card in tandem with opposing Thassa's Oracles. That's also why it's there. We only have the one Planeswalker. You could do Chain of Smog Onyx in this list. You could have a Reality Scramble, hit Tevesh spot, and get Liliana's teacher cosplay card from Strixhaven. I don't really like that combo. And I think that she's too expensive in the 99. However, if that's something that you do, that's cool. I'm going to avoid it here, but that is another reason to run Reality Scramble, even though we're not running the Rograkh line of play into Reality Scramble. Claim the Firstborn is one of the best utilities in this deck, and this might be one of the only decks that can use it well, but gain control of target creature with a mana value of 3 or less until end of turn. Untap it, it gains haste. Oh boy, how many Tymnas I have stolen, drawn from, eaten, drawn more from. So good. So good. Tasty. Delicious. Kinnan? Even better. I love Simic. Simic is what I eat for breakfast. And remember, they're commanders you're stealing. Usually commanders. You can also use Claim the Firstborn as targeted removal. Like if there's an Orcish Bowmaster that you just have no other way of removing, steal the Bowmaster. Chase the Bowmaster. It's really good. It's just one of the better cards in the deck. Same story with Wrangle. I only have the 2 game control effects for now. Again, I really like Tentative Connection because with Rograkh out, it's only 1 CMC and it's the best form of hijack effect you can get. It's just a clean, I take your thing, it's untapped, it has haste till end of turn. But you don't always have Rograkh out, so that's my one qualm with that. Still feels good. Pete is amazing, Jessica's Will is amazing, Praetor Cross is amazing. Wheel of Fortune, I don't generally like wheels. Only in lists that are going very, very fast are wheels good. Are wheels valid at all? You should never run a wheel out turn 5 when everyone's expended their resources and you're just giving 21 cards worth of value, unless you have a Grand Abolisher out, a Silence is resolved, a Ranger Captain of Eos has been activated, unless you've done something, a defense grid, to stop people from playing into your turn, don't wheel late game. Turn 1 wheel? I'd run that out. Otherwise, it's cute. It's cute. It's expensive. And it's cute. I've sold both my Wheels of Fortune. Again, another card I wish I didn't sell. Shatterskull Smashing makes for 29 lands. It's also just a 2 CMC spell that helps us remove things. I think that Shatterskull Smashing is probably still the best MDFC from Ikoria. I think this was Ikoria. Or Expedition, I forget what it is. It's amazing. You should still run it. DT Diabolic Intent, amazing here. Again, we switched out Etherflux Reservoir for Grape Shot, namely this one, because the art is freaking amazing. But 2, it's just a more effective way to storm into a win. All the rest of these make sense, right? Fast Mana Gamble, Faithless Looting. Faithless Looting is fine. Don't get me wrong, I love Faithless Looting, particularly in lists that are dual color and monocolored. It's just really good value. It's fueling our Underworld Breach with the 2 cards you're discarding. And it is, in fact, a loot. You know, normally red has rummage effects, but this is, in fact, a loot with you are drawing before you make the decision to discard, which is a lot cleaner way of doing the thing. Blue, of course, just has that in droves. Red, it's really just this. But here it almost feels, with how quickly this list moves and what you're trying to do on the mulligan, this is really good for fixing a bricked hand, or just a hand that's not really as effective as it should be, like if you had to go down to 5. But generally speaking, I can't say that Faithless Looting has been my favorite utility in the list. So I feel like Faithless Looting and Ragavan are kind of on the chopping block for me, but everything else is really kind of integral. The things I want to add are, we've got Necromancy in here. I really want to add Spiteful Banditry. I cannot tell you how important it is to just have more forms of removal in your list. This is new from Lord of the Rings. It sucks. I opened up a bunch of packs, and I was really hoping to pull a Spiteful Banditry out of the... I opened like over 30 packs. Nope. Got a lot of the same cards, a lot of the same rares. Not a Spiteful Banditry. Again, I said earlier, I pulled 2 Orcus Bowmasters. That was great. But this is fantastic. I think that this Meathook Massacre is also really good. Meathook Massacre here, not as much as Spiteful Banditry, and I'll tell you why. But these are a slow rolling cycle of cards that WotC's kind of just churning out at its leisure, but it's X double the color of the color it's in, right? For now. There's only 2 of these massacres so far. But this is good for removing the board, and then whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you gain 1 life. This is still good. Again, these are negligible. Once they're on the battlefield, a lot of people won't be considering their existence unless they're doing account for their own Dockside Extortionist. They don't really care that you have this. But the life gain is, you know, not non-important, and the life loss is actually quite important. However, Spiteful Banditry, we're more heavy into red rituals than we are black rituals, so getting this out is actually quite easy. But what it does is enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to each creature. Depending on the situation, it will be okay that you nuke your own thrall, because you should be able to fuel this fire. It doesn't matter if they're flying, doesn't matter whatever, provided X is high enough, you'll just wipe the board, and your Planeswalker, Tevesh, who's the star of the show, will be fine. So hold off on activating Tevesh, see if you can resolve Spiteful Banditry, get the treasure when 1 or more creatures your opponent's control dies. It only activates once per turn, but that's more than enough. Get the treasure, and then go ahead and make your thrall, so you have blockers. I really like Spiteful Banditry here. I think that new tech is fantastic for this list. It's only 2 CMC on the Adnaz. I want to include it. I don't know where it's going to get into the list from. So if you're following along, feel free to let me know. I'll save and continue for now. So we can sort of make that revision. But any other new cards you guys want to look at, we'll need to look at. Ragavan is a beautiful little monkey, says Humid. Ragavan is a beautiful looking monkey. You know what's weird though? You know who's not a beautiful looking monkey? This guy. Again, I don't understand why we went from a goblin, clearly goblin, and I understand like the Ixalan goblins look like monkeys, but they're kind of a far cry from goblins at this point too. It's so weird like having them both in the list. I always get confused when I see this Dockside Extortionist. I'm like, why is he getting treasures from a Ragavan like that quickly? I'm always so confused because they look so damn similar. The size, at least with the original art, the size of Ragavan and the size of this Dockside are very similar. But yeah, that always confused me. Not a beautiful monkey. I love Ragavan, but I agree in this deck he's kind of lukewarm. Still worth it from what I can see available though. Wild Magic Surge is similar to a Braid. I think Wild Magic Surge might have been the one I thought of as like the new replacement. I guess the only thing I'm concerned of is the unknown. Right? It's like, it could just be really bad for us. Is Shattering Spree necessary? Card is amazing, but could be a flex slot. So you know what I did with the same game I won? I did a turn 1 Tevesh, and then I played out Ragavan again, and I drew 3 cards. I had some fast mana. I played, I forget what I played fast mana wise. That's largely irrelevant. So next turn, I was able to, I think I DT'd for something, and then I replicated with the leftover mana, because all I was really trying to do was stun people. So I made some tempo plays. The Tivit player did a turn 1 mana vault the turn prior. The Kenrith player did a turn 1 mana vault, and then the player next to me played a Soul Ring. Replicate Shattering Spree. Did it 3 times. Did it twice. Replicate Mana Vault Tivit. Replicate the Mana Vault on Kenrith, and then the original went for Shattering Spree. Or sorry, the original Shattering Spree went for Soul Ring. I think I actually did Shattering Spree on the, I hardcasted on the Tivit's Mana Vault. It had a counter, no one else did. So I was able to tempo down 2 players pretty effectively, and it put them off getting their commanders sooner. It also just took a resource from Tivit. What's nice about this is the fact that it's only 1 on the Adnos, right? That's always the most important part. It's not symmetrical like a Meltdown would be, which is the equivalent in my opinion. And it's, again, very easy to fuel with your rituals, because I think I did like a Desperate or a Pyretic ritual into this. So personally speaking, I really like a Shattering Spree as a spell. It is one of those effects that I feel like should be played more, but it's up to you. I think that you can remove it if you don't like it, but you do need to have a handful of tempo cards in your list, and Shattering Spree is one of those ones that's very good at de-escalating a board state, and asymmetrically. So personally speaking, I think I'll keep it in. I know people like Vandal Blast instead. There's so much art now. I would get this one. I would buy this one. But destroy target artifact you don't control and has overload. The only issue is replicate does enough. I feel like the overload on this is maybe a little win more. It really, if it's late game, then yeah, the overload on this is hitting a lot. But generally speaking, the 5 that you're going to fuel into this is maybe not getting you the same return as a replicate would. Also, this is 1 spell as opposed to 1 spell copied by however many replications we've done, right? Where'd my, oh, it's right here, sorry. But yeah, when you cast a spell, copy it for each time it's technically a trigger on the cast, which is kind of cool. So there are shenanigans for replicate as a keyword, but we're not really dealing with any of them. At any rate, I hope that helps. That one's really good in my opinion. But we can keep talking through the choices in this list if it helps. Again, we need to remove 1 card to add the Spiteful Banditry, and it doesn't sound like it's gonna be Ragavan, because it seems like we all generally like Ragavan, and it looks like I need to buy a copy of Ragavan. And I'm not gonna lie to you, this Multiverse Legends version of Ragavan is the Ragavan. Like this, I don't know how people obtain this normally. Was it like a secret? It wouldn't be a secret there. I don't know I don't know where you get this. It's so good looking though, and honestly the masterpiece bordering from Kaladesh is like still my favorite. I don't know why, just looks really good to me. Anyway, is Shattering Spree necessary? Yeah, I think so. By force. So by force, is this the Abrade? Oh, this is the other option. So here's what by force has over replicate. Has over Shattering Spree, not over replicate. It's very similar in tone to doing the Vandal Blast, right? Except not, because it's targeting specific artifacts. It is, however, similar in the sense that it's removing multiple artifacts off of a singular card. The reason, again, that I use Shattering Spree is the fact that it's several individual spells or copies of a spell that are going at your artifact. So it gives me a little bit more clearance over, removal, right? Just because, imagine if I cast by force in that same instant and the Tivit player countered it. It would really suck, because then I lose the ability to tempo out the other 2 players because of this Tivit's choice, right? And they might still do that because it can be difficult to get Tivit out quickly because of the 3 colored pips. And obviously the Mana Vault is attending to the 3 generic of that creature's cost. So I don't know. By force, I would categorize them as I like by force a little bit more than Vandal Blast personally. I like Meltdown a little bit more than both, because this destroys each artifact with a total casting cost of X or less. It's important to note that it doesn't target, so that does skirt around a few effects. Not always relevant, but you'll normally use a Meltdown before laying out your own mana rocks, right? Or when you can do it safely. This is one of those utilities that is going up in value, and I still think is one of the better artifact removals in the game. Okay, so so we're obviously good. We're obviously good on Ragavan in this list, but how do we feel about Faithless Looting? So this isn't still good in 2023. Is Faithless Looting still good in Rakdos? I feel like Faithless Looting here, you mulligan so aggressively with this deck, generally speaking, that you're going to have a better hand than Faithless Looting is going to help you find. It's still very good, though, when you have nothing to do. Really, really good when you have nothing to do. But I can't help but feel it's not as effective as removing threats, which is what I want to add more of in the deck. And then the potential treasure gain off of this. Because truth be told, Spiteful Banditry is going to be very good for removing the Drannith Magistrate. It's going to be very good for removing the ongoing hate bears that are there. And then it's also going to effectively ramp me turn after turn. Even if it's just the one treasure I get from this, I still feel like that is effectively better. So, mass removal, one treasure. That still feels cleaner to me, because you're still going to get more triggers off of this. Again, I can't really take account into how many strategies are going to be playing into this, but I still feel like that's a little bit better than Faithless Looting. I would love to hear your thoughts, though. I think that it's probably what I'll remove to get Spiteful Banditry in here. And the only other card I would want to incorporate is potentially Reiterate. So while that poll is going off, what I want to do is just search instant and sorcery. So we're going to look up instant speed spells and sorceries. I don't know if I've missed any... You know what? I lied to you. I don't know if I've missed any channel effects since recently. I know there's this channel lands, but I don't think they're any good for this particular deck. Maybe the there is the new land Gimli's, the Mountain of Moria? Oh my gosh. The place where Gimli lives. That one lets you exile cards from your graveyard and make treasures. I feel like that land is kind of unique. It comes into play tapped unless you don't control legendary. We'll look at it later. I think that one might be good here. Dragon's Rage Channeler might be good here. Surveil, obviously very effective. There's some cool art for this one too, right? I thought this one had a special art, but basically Surveil, you look at the top of your library, and unlike Scry, instead of putting it at the bottom of your library, you can put it into your graveyard instead. I think that Dragon's Rage Channeler is maybe effective here, but we're looking for channel effects. I don't think there's anything really great in these colors. Deals 4 damage to target creature at 4 CMC to do that channel effect, and 3, it's too much. Oh, Jawara is horrible for us. Ironfoot is horrible for us. Shinin is horrible. The haste enabling is kind of good on that, but not quite good enough. This is new to me. Reinforced Ronin. Discard this, draw card. It's not good enough. And there are the lands. So you have Takanuma and Sokuzen. Sokenzen. So that's 4 CMC. It costs less per legendary, right? 2 creatures with haste until end of turn. That's just okay. I wouldn't really... I would rather... I don't know, you can make one, eat it, and have the other one attack. That's fine. Mill 3 cards and return a creature or a planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. So that feels kind of good, right? If we let... Imagine this. Imagine this getting stifled, because channel is an activated ability. So imagine this getting stifled. If we let Tevesh die and go to the graveyard, and we... See, but even if you do that with Takanuma, It doesn't make sense. Like, it would just be better to spend the 2 generic more to get it out from your CZ than it would your graveyard, unless there's a Drannith Magistrate or there's something stopping you from playing it from the CZ. I don't really see Takenuma being used. I think it's just a cute... Again, the mill 3, though, I don't want to say is bad, because that does feel the Underworld Breach. Otherwise, it's just a basic swamp. I don't know. Maybe there's room for Takenuma. What do you guys think? Should we Takenuma? I kind of talking myself into it. I feel like it's still okay. I'm on a very tenuous no vote for Faithless Looting in this deck, mainly because the deck has a lot of draw, especially with Tevesh potentially drawing 3, right? Are you running the red channel land from Kamigawa? Thank you. I'm sorry. We literally, no, I'm not. DRC is amazing and has huge synergy with Underworld Breach. DRC, is that, which one's DRC? I actually love running Takenuma. All those channel lands are really completely free, man, especially in 2 or less colors. Yeah, I mean, so I just realized, I mean, we are forcibly in a tainted pack mana base, so it doesn't hurt to incorporate it. We just go ahead and add Takenuma to the sideboard. I don't really feel like they should replace basic lands in the deck, because we still need our fetch lands to hit something, and we're gonna run out of shock and dual lands. But I'll add them to the sideboard for now. We can find a slot for Takenuma and Soken Zen in a second, provided they don't take the slot of a basic land, because also it's rare, but sometimes people play back to basics, or there could be a Blood Moon, which isn't the worst against us, because we're able to still play out a Dockside Extortionist and we're fine. You know what I'm saying. But yeah, I think it makes sense. We'll incorporate those. And I don't think there's any good channelers for this list. I do want to go back and do the thing I was talking about. Just look at instants and sorceries, but I do want to do one more thing first. I just want to look at lands really quickly, because I did mention that new one from Lord of the Rings. I want to look at it with you guys. Not Mount Doom, not the Blackgate. Not the Blackgate. Not Barad-dûr. So, this one. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary creature. Okay, so turn 1, you play out Rograkh. Then you play Mines of Moria. Moria! I got it right. I said Mountain of Moria. Foolish me. I think there's good art for this one too. Like, they've got one that looks really close to the movie. I'm a really big fan of the film, so sorry if I don't reference the books as much. Exile 3 cards from your graveyard, create 2 treasure tokens. So it's kind of rare where you're going to want to do this, but if you got nothing to do off turn, maybe it's good. Is this virtually free? No, I don't like this as much as the channel lands, I could say that. I don't think there's any other new lands, though, that would be a consideration, though, for this deck. Let me know, though, if there is a land you think makes sense. You know, there's a land that lets you draw when you make tokens. I forget what that one's called, but I don't even think that's necessary for this deck. It's a little win more for this list. Edgewall Inn I've not looked at, but I don't think there's anything that's also going to make its way into the deck. And we're over to where Mycosynth Garden is, so I think this is maybe the cutoff for lands I've potentially missed. Blackcleave Cliffs I've used to run in the deck as a fast land. It's really good for just that quick color fixing. It does get progressively worse as the game goes on. I have this copy that I pulled, but I'm not sure that it's necessary. I took it out. I took out Blackcleave Cliffs, excuse me. Right? I think I took that out for one of the lands I introduced. Okay. Dragon Rage Chandler, I'm sorry, DRC, that's what you meant. We only stifle turn 1 fetches, oracles, and docksides on this side, fam. I'm high on Mines of Moria. I'll add Mines of Moria to the sideboard so people know that it's a consideration, but I don't know if I personally will incorporate it. I like it, though. My only qualm is that it is counterintuitive with... It is counterintuitive with Underworld Breach, where Takenuma is very good with Underworld Breach. So it's quite good. So, okay. This list has evolved quite a bit from where it previously was, and I do want to do some playthroughs in a second before I need to make dinner here, because this boy's hungry. Okay. Hopefully being in the tank with me has been helpful for you guys. I don't know. Hopefully enjoyable. I know it's not the same as starting a deck from scratch, but are there other lists you want to revise from this roster, from this brewer? Let me know. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on some of our previous lists, like if it's Marath, Savala, all the way back. Let me know if you want us to revisit anything, and I'd be happy to give everything a crack. I mean, depending on how far back the deck is from this channel's roster, there are a lot of cards to replace. But luckily I did a lot of the heavy lifting before we even got to this one. So, we need to cut some stuff. Let's make room for the lands. I do want to do Takenuma. Like you guys were saying, it's free pretty much. I don't know where it comes in though. That's my issue. I do not want to take out the basic lands. I feel like the basic lands are more valuable than the channel effects on these. I might have to like consider this later. I know some people wouldn't like the use of City of Traders. I personally feel it's invaluable. It's very good. It's another card for Underworld Breach. It's really good effective ramp early game. It's okay when it goes away. Get the most out of it before you do. Gemstone Caverns is still good in this deck. Holdout Settlements, and Survivor's Encampment. So those two might be what we replace. Those two might be what we replace. Because you might not always have a creature for... You might not always have a creature for this. You might not always have a creature for the ability. So I might do Holdout Settlement and Survivor Encampment. For it's still technically better to have those for color fixing, but for a clean red and a clean black land, that's good. Mines of Moria doesn't have a clean slot though. There's nothing that I would say is inferior to Mines of Moria to allow for it to be in the deck, and we've eliminated any lands that might potentially enter the battlefield tapped. The only one that's seemingly useless in effect if it's off the top of our deck and not in our starting hand is Gemstone Caverns. Gemstone Caverns feels like it's so situational, but it's so useful when it hits, so I feel like it stays. Not a big fan of Prismatic Vista with singleton mana base. P-Vista still hits your... So we're doing Snow-Covered, Swamp Mountain, and Swamp and Mountain. So there are 4 targets for it. Bearing in mind, though, that there are a ton of fetch lands in this deck, so there's technically not a great need for it, but it does have 4 targets. Again, I do not like the fact that you have to exile cards from your graveyard. Imagine if someone does a turn 1 Draneth's Magistrate and like Mines of Moria was your land. God, that would suck, wouldn't it? Exile 3 cards from your graveyard, create 2 treasures, though it's still really good. I feel like that ramp can be super effective with some sort of mill in the deck, but we don't really have mill baked into this list, like consequently or otherwise, unless we're doing Faithless Looting. And it sounds like we still want to do Faithless Looting. Oh, Snow-Covered lands make it better. Yeah, it does, but like how much better? You know, we've still got a lot of fetch lands to roll through. And they have 6 targets for the list, right? So they're generally going for the Badlands and or the Blood Crypt first, but it still makes sense, I guess. I was high on Mines of Moria. You misread. Oh. You sound like you're still high on Mines of Moria. Okay. So we need to cut something. If it's not Faithless Looting, people. If it's not Faithless Looting, because it sounds like we still like Faithless Looting in this list, what do we cut for Spiteful Banditry from this deck? So I'm just going to go through the cards, and then I want to go... You know what? I think I know what it is. I think I'm looking at it. I think it's Springleaf Drum. I'm just going to have these go up on the screen, and you can holler when you see something you don't like. But I think it's Springleaf Drum for us. Yes, Springleaf Drum is ramp. Like once it's resolved and we have creatures. but I feel like it's just not good enough. Is there a high enough artifact count for Mox Opal to be online reliably? I generally like it to be at 16 artifacts, my deck, for it to go off. I feel like that's been the most consistent number so far as the average CMC or average artifact count for the deck, excuse me. 16's been good. After an ad nauseum, it doesn't even matter. If you play Dockside Extortionist, you'll have the artifacts. So I'm going to do Springleaf Drum for now. I'm going to do Springleaf Drum for now. Ricochet Trap, man, it saved my ass so many times. Again, the same game I won, you just need so much interaction to insist on things going through. But Ricochet Trap is just one of those cards. Generally speaking, it's usually blue magic that's on the stack, or at least bogging up the stack or creating a very big stack. It's always blue magic. So this is always going to be one red, virtually one red. So changing the target of target's spell with a single target. It could even be a counter war over someone's Peer into the Abyss, and then you just allow everything to happen. And if Peter resolves, then you just reap the benefits. You know what I mean? Like, it's very good. Or if you need to impact the counter war, you can have a say in that counter war. I think Ricochet Trap is one of Red's only utilities for really having a say, outside of RAB and Pyroblast. Tybalt's Trickery is not as clean because you can give value. I think that the redirects are still really solid, and there aren't too many redirects that people use outside of Deflecting Swat. So having one that's supremely playable, in my opinion, even if it's 4 CMC, and again, that's really the last, I think, 4 CMC, it is the last 4 CMC utility that this deck is using at this point. I think I just like Nyx Divergent, Deadly Rollick, excuse me. Deadly Rollick is in black, and Chaos Warp was one of the last things I removed as well. I wouldn't cut Drum personally with Thralls and Rog. It's the most of the time it's extra mana I needed. Yeah, Jose, I don't know what else to cut, because I would rather have, I feel like there's enough ramp going on, and we'll see in a second. I feel like there's enough ramp going on because, like, the turn you play Springleaf Drum, it's not ramp. It's virtually zero, but it's not ramp. You know what I mean? So if I do a turn 1 Rograkh and I use my land to play out Springleaf Drum and I just hold up mana for the Vampiric Tutor in my hand, all I'm really doing is fueling an opposing Dockside for a better play, really, right? When my play was sort of just breaking even at first, it will progressively get better, but I think it's... Oof, there's your Mox Opal. It will progressively get better, though. I think that this hand is potentially keepable. What I really wanted to see here was... Mox Opal is offline, but that doesn't matter. I would really like a ritual. I would really like a ritual. I think we can keep this. This is not amazing, but it will... I generally would probably mull something like this, but it's still like a clean starting hand, and then we have the Ricochet Trap to kind of insist on the ad nauseum going through. We can steal any turn 1 Tymnas and get a draw out of it as well with the Claim the Firstborn on the rotation. Let's just see what our draw is from this hand. Wow, okay, there's the ritual. Boop. Boop. We will put the Mox Opal out. The ritual is not big enough for us to do anything right now, because we can go to red. The only thing that could have helped us is maybe like a Mox Amber into this. We'll go ahead and play Rograkh out, just because. We hold, and then we go for... God, I wish I was Mox Amber in this moment. This does not make Mox Opal a bad card, mind you, this situation. It's kind of rare to have, like... Unless you're playing Oswald. Like, having Mox Opal online every game, turn 1, is not that common. Well, everything was free, so we could just hold up mana to do stuff, and I'm fine with that. But next turn, oop. Okay, Blood Crypt. We'll play out Blood Crypt. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 mana, 5 with Rite of Flame. We can just send it and see if we resolve an ad nauseum. I would personally rather shoot out Tevesh. See if the board cares. Okay, does it care? Hopefully not. We'll go and make Thrall in this instance. Depending on the board, like if someone has something to swing into me, then I would make Thrall. Let's just pretend that there's nothing that's looming. We'll send this back to the CZ. I'll draw 3 cards. Okay. Oh, okay, that's not bad. Grinding Station is going to activate Mox Opal, and it's going to set up an Underworld Breach play. Even if there was something that could attack into me, this might be the better play because we've got 5 loyalty counters. So, you know, it hits me for what? Again, if it's a Tymna, they want to draw. If it's a Thrasios, they'll do 1. If it's a... It really depends on what's opposing me. 1 singular Crom can kill Tevesh at this moment. We're just going to try to get as much value out of Tevesh before I let him go. But honestly, seeing my hand, you seeing my hand, all we really want is to drop that Ad Nauseam. Peer into the Abyss is really nice off the top here because we're not going to hit that off of Ad Nauseam. Next turn, Orcish Bowmasters. So we can play a slower game here. We can play a slightly slower game, knowing that we can use our effects to good measure. So one of the first things I want to do is potentially get the Mox Opal online, but not at the risk of losing our Mana Crypt. But the cleanest thing to do here would be to do Claim the Firstborn. I'm going to steal your... I've been mentioning Tymna this whole time. I'll steal your Tymna. Right? I don't usually sit down and not have a Tymna opposing me, so that's why I bring it up so much. Most of the people I play with are just playing the meta stuff all the time, so just you get used to it. I got a Tymna. I'm gonna attack. Do I get to draw a card? Oh yeah, I'll lose a life, draw a card. I'm just gonna say I lost 10 life, whatever. I'm gonna say I lost 10 life with the Tymna activation here. I'll draw a card, or she gains life, whatever. I'll just say I'm down to 30. That's fair. Draw a card. Okay. I will eat the Tymna, giving it back to my opponent. I'll draw 3 cards. And this is what we got. So this is turn 3. I probably should have waited on the land, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and use this and this generic for... it has to be red. We'll do this. We'll use this for Seething Song. Let's go ahead and give ourselves 5 red. We're going to go ahead and use 2 of the red to put down a Grinding Station. This is going to put Mox Opal online. This isn't necessarily where we want to be for this, but we can just ship the Adnos at this point if we really wanted to. And I think for the sake of just going through some play lines, let's say we can do this safely. So we'll do this for 3. 1, 2, black. We'll lose another life. And we're going to go through with 29 life. So we've got, I'll just draw it. 0, 1, 3, 4. Ooh, 4, 6, 9, 10, 12, 15. Okay. That's 2, that's 4. We're down to 10 life. Cool. We can honestly stop here, but I'll draw one more for funsies. I'll draw another one for funsies. Entomb. Wow. Okay. So we're not going to Entomb Reanimate Hoarding Broodlord right now. I can tell you that. That's a bad idea. But we do have some fast mana, right? Do we stop here actually? Do we have enough fast mana in this hand? We do not have enough fast mana in this hand. We just have the Mox Opal. Ooh. Vampiric Tutor. That's not what we want. We might just ship it and die here. Let's see what we get to. I think because like we wanted to see more fast mana, like a Simian Spirit Guide would have been really good, but at this point Simian Spirit Guide would kill us. We just have the Mox Diamond, sadly. Even like one piece of fast mana would get us through this, but yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Or Dockside would be really cool, yeah. Reason for Seething Song on this list, what's all the red for? Says the glove. The red is for exactly what you saw, just playing out shit. Seething Song's really good in this deck. Sometimes you need to have the mana just to refresh a Tevesh, and it's going to give you the mana requisite to do that with either, I don't know, your Jewel Lotus, anything. Like, 3 for 5 is just a clean form of ramp. But generally speaking, it's really solid off the ad nos. It's going to go into playing like an Arcane Signet for some color fixing, and or you can rip it into a Reverberate or a Fork to give you a double of a DT. There's plenty of situations where all that red is useful. It could even just go into helping you fuel a Jessica's Will and get even more red. But it's just good effective ramp. I could see where we might want to cut it, but it would need to be something equivalent that's equally as good. And I don't think there's really much as good as Seething Song. It's also important to note that Seething Song is instant speed. So provided, my opponents don't realize I have more ways to interact, like off turn, you can use this as like a potential dual caster mage and then hold up mana for a fork. There's so many lines of play for a Seething Song, namely because it is instant speed, that people tend to neglect. But again, like, it doesn't need to be in the list if you don't want it. You can copy and make your own version of this deck. But this is one I've played for years. We've just revised it. I want to take another crack at this though, because I think it can be better. I said I didn't want to keep that hand anyways, but it still worked. I usually mull pretty aggressively. Like, I want to see a handful of things happen, and I think that this is okay. I think that generally people would see this and say like, this is more than keepable, because you can use this to get a good solution off of the Vampiric Tutor. You also just have Tainted Pack right here. And you also have a Wishclaw Talisman. So I would say that this is a slower start than I would generally want. Like, again, you're really aiming to get the Ad Nauseam and or Tevesh out as early as possible, turn 1, turn 2. And I think we can maybe get here with that. I think Vampiric Tutor is probably going to reach for another form of fast mana. It could just be a Mana Vault into Tevesh. That would be fine. Because next turn we have like virtually, with what we're representing in our hand, we have 4 mana total. So we are just shy. It could be any of our rituals, right? Like a Desperate Ritual would work here. Is that true? Yeah. So generic, triple red, and then the black off of this. We might do like one of the 2 for 3 rituals just to get us to that next level and save the Dark Ritual or the Cabal Ritual. So no, this is not bad. Yeah, let's just play this out, because again, it's really because of how consistent the mana base is in this deck, with these 2 leaders in particular, these 2 commanders in particular, excuse me. You can play a lot of hands. This is keepable. The mountain's back there, and we'll go ahead and do Badlands. Badlands. Okay. Cool. So right now we're holding up mana for, we could do Tainted Pack into the solution, although mind you, you might exile something along the way. You might not want to do that. We can hold up the Imp's Mischief. Obviously, we could have played the Wishclaw Talisman out and cracked it, but that's not necessarily what I want to do. I kind of want to fuel our next turn with Vampiric Tutor first. And Wishclaw is generally best when you're going for a win. Normally you play Wishclaw Talisman out, you leave it until you're ready to pop off, and then you use it for that last core card you need, right? It's also important to note that it's activate only during your turn, but that means you can use it on your upkeep, you can use it in combat, you can use it to find a solution while it counters on the stack, right? It's not sorcery speed. I think people often forget the timing of this card. So you can use this as a reactive effect as well. So I would rather just save it for later, is what I'm saying. So we'll do the Vampiric Tutor, and we'll go for oh look, if I grabbed Ad Nauseam here, I could technically hold, and then we could Tainted Pact for the fast mana to do it later. I feel like just getting Tevesh spot out might be better. There's also, I'm trying to, so this is why I'm in the tank with this deck. Like, I don't really know the best play lines with this current version of the deck, right? What is the most effective use of our tutors and the most effective use of our resources going into this turn? What would you want to do? Vamp Tutor for Dockside? Right. So that might be the best ritual. So it's hard to tell in a vacuum how good a turn 2 Dockside would be, but generally speaking, against the cEDH meta, it'll get like 3 to 4, and we can be modest and say 4, right? Let's just do that. I think you're right. It's funny because I haven't, again, this has been a reality scramble list for so long. I have not had any other creatures that I forget that Dockside is in this list now. I have this really cool hand painted one that I use. I had it like I got the starter kit. I got the ones with Savine's Reclamation. I got the Dockside, had it altered ages ago before the price spiked. And I'm just so happy I have that copy. We'll do Dockside, and we'll just say that we get 3 or 4. Let's just say 4, be modest. Boop. Okay. Let's go ahead and just remove some more of our lands. Maybe bait. Bait an opposition agent. Hopefully not. We'll do the Blood Crypts, and we'll go ahead and play Dockside Extortionist. I'm trying to make it so you guys can see these. Sorry about that. So Dockside Extortionist, we'll do the generic here, and let's just say we lost 3 life over that. Again, I want to give our opponents the benefit of the doubt here. That, and we lost life for the Shocklands, and we'll tap here. Okay. Dockside Extortionist is going to enter the battlefield, and we're going to make some treasures. We're going to say that it's 4. We still have 1 generic floating. I'm going to use that generic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Huh. What if I did this? Because I have the Imp's Mischief, right? If I have the Imp's Mischief. So what I'm thinking is, yes, I could Tevesh Spot here with the generic, or I could just use Wishclaw Talisman. So I'm clearly presenting the fact that I can go ad nauseum next turn with mana open, right? And we know that I have Imp's Mischief in hand. Maybe that's enough. If there's another greedy player, this is maybe the opportunity for them to go first and potentially eat some counters for me, even if I am presenting a potential win. I don't think I'll use a treasure off turn to do this. I think I'll use part of the Mana Crypt mana to go into Witchclaw Talisman on my turn to go for a main phase ad nauseum. But there's a couple of routes we can take here with that Tainted Pact as well. Like, if we need a solution for our opponents off turn, we can use our treasure for the Imp's Mischief. I would rather save this bit of protection for our own ad nauseum, and maybe it makes sense to go for Wishclaw over Tevesh Spot and drawing 3. We can even potentially go to Tevesh Spot, eat the Dockside Extortionist, and find a reanimate effect later. I think I'd most rather just put the Wishclaw Talisman down and not lose any of our treasures and pass. The only downside to this, though, is now my opponents can DT for their own Dockside, and I'm forced to either crack my treasures or let them go ham. So I don't like situations like that. That's generally what you see players do to counter a Dockside, is grab their own Dockside. It just perpetuates the problem. But I think that this is okay. Let's just say that in a vacuum, this is maybe the best situation for us. Gosh dang, ads. Are there so many ads on live stream? I have YouTube automatically do it, but depending on how long the streams go, I think it just generates more and more. Sorry about that. There's always like a weird dip I see here for when that happens. But it helps to support the channel, so there's that. So if you like supporting the channel, there's that. Sorry though if there's too many. I'm not controlling it. It's just doing its own thing. It doesn't. On the back end, I think they're switching how they do ads here, and I don't know if that's extended to the live streams and like the algorithm as to where they should put ads. But okay, let's do Wishclaw Talisman next turn. Did I? It doesn't matter. I won't shuffle. Saw and a half. Okay, so let's just say that I didn't have to do anything. I'm just Rakdos. I don't have solutions. I'm just a baby. I can't do anything about your counter spells. And I just sit there and I let everyone resolve their own problems. Cool. Let's just say again, I lost another 3 life because you know what? Being me, with my luck, I would have lost 3 life off of Mana Crypt. It's just how it works. We'll tap here. I'll float a generic and I'll give this Wishclaw Talisman to my best friend. They know who they are. It has some counters on it. Let's go for ad nauseum. Okay, so main phase ad naus. Let's go. Let's do this, the generic, and a treasure. Let's say that I had to I gotta do the Imp's Mischief. Does it resolve? Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. Okay. 2, 1. That's 5. That's 6. 7, 8, 10, and that is 17. Let's keep going. Hoarding Broodlord is the other one that can really be fatal for me, so we'll need to take inventory of our life here, particularly now, because Hoarding Broodlord is 8. Let's go. One more time. Cool. Okay, 3. Gambling's fun. Should I just run a gambling live stream? I feel like I would make oodles of money. I'm not good at gambling though. All right, we'll do the Mox Diamond. We'll get rid of Takenuma. We'll get rid of Takenuma away. Maybe we channel it. No, we'll get rid of Takenuma. I saw with my little eye a Lion's Eye Diamond. I saw we'll have to ramp that out. I think the win we're going for is probably Dual Caster Mage Twin Flame, right? There's not a good way to get there though right now. And we don't have Arcane Signet for color fixing. We do have the Skull Clamp and a 1 defense body, so I could technically draw more. This is not me ending the ad nauseum, by the way. I should have stated that. I'm really just playing through what I should do. We're gonna need this fast mana though. We already played land per turn. We didn't technically have to. It might have been good to wait on the land just to get this Crystal Vein out, because the Crystal Vein could have given us both our Soul Ring and our Mana Vault, both of which are not great in this situation. We do need 1 colored mana though going into this turn, and we do not have a good way to generate black outside of LED. So we may need to keep going here. One more. Another one. One more. One last one. Okay, cool. Okay, that is enough. So now we're representing all the colors we need. So these are not cast. Again, these are not cast. I did sort of fast track the Mox Diamond, and those are cast. Consider those cast. Okay, so we'll do Dark Ritual. Cool. Cool. I'll break that. And I'll do the treasure. Sure. Just get the treasure out of the way. I'll do the Desperate Ritual. So we've got 3 and 3. Cool. You could have made an argument to just do a Soul Ring first. I think we need the red more than we need the black, right? So I'll do Soul Ring into a Mana Vault. I'll just go ahead and tap the Mana Vault now. And is there anything else we want to do? It'd be really cool to kill the Dockside and then reanimate it. I would be able to survive that, right? So maybe I do this. I'll use Lightning Bolt on my own Dockside, and then I'll use a black to reanimate it. I'll bring back Dockside. On turn 3, if we got 4 treasures before, let's just say that we make 6 treasures. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My recommendation is always to get all of your mana out of the way first. We'll go down to 1 life. This is really bad territory for us if someone does have some form of solution, and I am sort of going ham just because I can. It might be a little win more at this point if I feel like my opponents don't have anything for me. Also, we can use Twin Flame with Dockside, can't we? Can I strive that? Strive that, make 2 targets. I have infinite mana here too. Do you want to see a fun line? I think that's it for fast mana, by the way. Cool. Okay. We did the Dark Ritual. So, let's go. We're going to got 1 black mana. We'll start with the black mana. I'll do 1 black mana and 1 red mana, and I'll cast Twin Flame targeting Dockside Extortionist, and I'll even strive it. Do I have the mana to do that? No, I'm sorry. We need to do 1 generic mana. I forgot I had these. 1 generic mana to use Twin Flame, and I will strive it actually. So I'll strive it, and I'll target the spell. You copy it. This spell costs 3 more for each target beyond the first. So I'll target Rograkh and Dockside Extortionist. Choose any number of target creatures you control. For each of them, create a token that's a copy of that creature except it has haste. Exile those tokens at the beginning of the next end step. Okay, so that's on the stack. I'll go ahead and use 1 generic and 1 red and 1 treasure. I'll cast Dual Caster Mage. Okay, so here's what the stack looks like. We've got a Twin Flame targeting Rograkh and Dockside Extortionist. And Dual Caster Mage is targeting Twin Flame. That's Striven. So the Strive is going to still exist on the spell because it was paid as part of the casting cost. So we have a spell that's targeting 2 creatures. We can adjust the targets of the copied spell. So I'll go ahead and let Dual Caster Mage resolve. Cool. Now, I've got a copy of Dockside Extortionist. I've got the original Dual Caster Mage. And now I have a copy of Twin Flame. So I'm making 6 mana off of treasures. I'm also able to copy a Dual Caster Mage to continue this line of play. So I have infinite hasty Docksides, I have infinite hasty Dual Caster Mages, I have infinite treasures. This is only important to note if you had a way to instant speed copy a spell like this, like if you did use a Merchant Zone. This is a good way to make infinite mana off turn to fuel other combo lines. But yeah, that's a fun way to win on turn 3, right? Again, I don't know if that was like the cleanest of play lines, but it was something we did. Okay. In my meta, turn 2 Dockside generally hits 6 treasures. Gosh dang. Okay. Well, don't mind the ads if they support your channel. I thank you for your support. But guys, hopefully that was useful for you. I think that this is maybe where I want the deck to land. There's really not much else I would change. The only other things I would do are probably work through all of the play lines for Hoarding Broodlord. And I'm probably going to incorporate Silken Zan and Takenuma. If you're watching this video late, I mean outside of the live stream, that was the tank. I've been in it for a little while with this list. I just needed a second to share my thoughts with some people. It's always helpful to have a soundboard. So thank you guys for working with me on this list. This is something that you guys should see for Friday Night Magic this Friday. I still need to make the thumbnail, but you can expect to see Moderately Anonymous Dan join us as well as a friend. So you should check that out this Friday. It's from Card Kingdom, but their shipping has been really slow recently. I like them as a service generally, but they've been a little slow to deliver. Not sure what that's about. But do I think 15 artifacts is enough for this list to include Mox Opal? Yes, still off of the ad nauseum. Does it feel bad when you don't hit it? Sure, but I don't think that's going to be as common as, you know, you'd expect. I think the rest of the cards in this list are really good. I think there are good alternates for all of the effects in this deck, like you guys were mentioning, Shattering Spree, like all of the different equivalents for that. I think you could definitely swap those out should you like. Still want to keep the Tainted Pact mana base. I love all of our instant speed spells at 25. I love Dual Caster Mage in this deck now that it has both Twin Flame and Saw in Half to operate with. We had Saw in Half combo in hand at the end there as well, if we wanted to go for that instead, right? I think Saw in Half was in our hand. Regardless, I think this is in a really good spot. And again, generally speaking, what I recommend to you is to look for those turn 1 Tevesh hands and or turn 1 ad nauseum hands. That's all this deck is really trying to do. And there's a couple of ways you can get there. So those mana lines are still the same as they were before. If you want to watch my old video, I think I mentioned pretty much all of the play lines that get you to those turn 1 hands, or they might have been in a previous primer. So recommend that, some watching from the archive should you like. But guys, thank you for staying with me this whole time. If you want to help support the channel, you can with the links in the description. It's not mandatory, but it does help keep the show going. I want to do a lot more with what local game group is doing, so expect more in the future. But until next time, see you around. Yeah, let me know if there's another deck you want to jump into for the tank. Honestly, this has been productive for me because it's rare that I get a moment to just like work on my own stuff unless it's like late night and I'm just in bed and not able to, you know, I'm just trying to unwind. Then I look at the decks I play. I think this is infinitely better now, though, not being a reality scramble list. It's nice being able to vampiric tutor a Dockside, I gotta say. All right, I see you guys. I'll see you guys. See you on the next one. It's dark in here. It got really dark for y'all.